Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is WBISLP 106.9. Let's talk real life with Native Manning, the late night talk show. We definitely want to say we appreciate you guys watching our rebroadcast on GPAT 23 and, of course, on other social media platforms. Google will allow you to download the Awesome Radio app to listen to the station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And also, you can find us on Roku TV as well. So we want to, welcome you to download us on the App Store as well with Alexa. All right, with no further delay, I want to introduce to you my host, Miss Nada Manning.
Good morning, everyone. It's my prayer that you all are doing well and you're ready to listen to this new topic that we have for this hour. And it gives me great pleasure to give to you also the kudos, as my co-host had mentioned. It's awfully glad to have you to join us. We look forward to seeing you every week. And not seeing you, but at least you're listening. Some of you we might see, and But anyway, it's good to be amongst you all. How about that? As we move forward, we have tonight's topic, something different: saving grace for the confined, or incarcerated, or the limited people, however way you want to word it. But my main focus will be on the incarcerated. Those who are imprisoned. I seldom talk about them, actually. I don't remember ever talking about them. If it was very brief. But I want to zoom in a little bit tonight about them and how they are faring in their walls of confinement where they are. Their limited access to people, their limited socialization, if you will, which is still access to people. So we have a couple of subtopics. One would be, I want to tell a story about one gentleman that was imprisoned. He was a father of two, a boy and a girl, teenagers. And I don't recall what he did to cause himself to be behind those walls. But it affected his children, of course, as we all know. It would affect the entire family. But in this story, I want to read the story to you, very brief, and then I want to ask a couple of questions or comments about it and give your opinion or your thoughts, or write in on Messenger. Let me know what you think. I think every household knows somebody that is incarcerated or have been incarcerated or confined in some kind of way, enough to give them some idea of how, or maybe no idea at all, of what it's like to be behind those walls, other than conversation. But I dare say that it cannot be much joy being limited to your freedom, not able to reach out to those that you care about like you want to reach out to them, with the phone calls and what have you that seem to be very limited also. I do know a gentleman who has a son that's incarcerated, and he is incarcerated according to dad. He's incarcerated. This is a real story I'm saying right now. Well, the other story is real too, but this part right here, I get to listen to dad from time to time talk about his son who is behind prison walls, and he does not believe that his son is guilty. He oftentimes expressed that. I have not met the son. He has three sons, two sons and a daughter, I believe. And he oftentimes expressed himself about how he feels the injustice is in the system of his son being incarcerated. I dare say that listening to this dad as a parent, it has to be very touching, as it is with anything that goes on with our children, no matter what their age is. Um, this son is grown, I would say probably close to 50, 50-ish, or late 40s, maybe something like that. And the son himself has 2 or 3 children. And it has not been very pleasant for dad. I have not heard the son's side, but dad is very torn up about it all. And it's been a few years now of what he was accused of as not being true. And the son himself says he was not guilty. As probably many of them in there say that they didn't do it. Whatever. I'm not going to focus on that because I don't know what's guilty, who did what. I'm just saying the after effect, the impact that it has on the extended family when this particular person, whether it be a male or woman, women incarcerated too, like I said, but my focus tonight is going to be on this dad who has been incarcerated for some time. Mom appears to be either deceased or she's just not in the picture. I don't know which. I'm talking about the story I'm going to tell you now. And this detective who was handling the case, who was responsible, because dad made it known that this detective was responsible for him being incarcerated. So this detective take on the responsibility of his 2 teenage children, a girl and a boy. And this detective is married herself, female, with 2 teenage children. Her husband is a construction person. So mom and dad, I want to call them the inmate dad, and then you have the regular dad. So you know which dad I'm talking about. Because I'm not calling out names, I'm just saying a situation here. So anyway, we now have 4 teenage children in this house because detective mom decided that she wanted to take those 2 children in herself because there is no mom around and dad is incarcerated. Well, dad gives her a fit. The incarcerated dad says, I don't want you to take my children. Now, dad is in a position where he shouldn't have a whole lot to say because he's what? He's confined. He's limited. He can't do anything for those children. And there are no in-laws mentioned, no grandma and granddaddy, none of them on either side. So here we are with these 2 teenage children, torn apart in their emotions. The young man is the older of the 2. I would say they probably maybe 15, 16, 17 range, somewhere around there. And the girl being the baby, we're talking about the incarcerated dad's 2 children. The girl is the baby, and she is very emotional. But the boy is irate. The boy is just, he's at the point where he just cannot stand the idea of anyone talking about his dad and where dad is. He's upset with dad now for being where he is, but he don't want anybody to talk about him either. So he has more of an opinion about everything than that his sister does. So we move on to say the impact that this father has on these 2 children is just unbelievable. I personally don't have any idea what that's like. Not to have either parent around. We're at the mercy of whomever. It just so happens that this married couple decided to take these 2 children in by the grace of God. That's why the subject is saving grace for the confined or the incarcerated. That's our topic for tonight. I am your host, Nada Manning, and I am here tonight to bring you real life issues. The name of the show is Let's Talk Real Life. And as I speak on this subject of the effect that this father has on his children, he has no idea because why? He refuses to see them, which goes into the next paragraph of the story. The detective mom decided to take the children to see dad. Dad was all for it at first. Dad decides at the 11th hour that he don't want to see his children. Now, this boy is already bent out of shape. He already fighting tooth and nail. He don't want to see him anyway. So the girl is all emotional. She wants to go see her daddy. So the sister is looking at the brother and saying, well, why is it you don't want to see dad? We haven't seen him in such a long time. He wants to see us. Well, the boy must have some memory that the girl don't care to remember or something, but he just, no, I don't want to do it. So after a while, the son of the adopted parents decided to step in and talk to the other boy. So we know sometimes teenagers listen to other teenagers better than they listen to adults. So since they were close in age, these two boys got to talking. And the one boy said, you know what? Your dad wants to see you. You haven't seen him in a while. The least you can do is put aside your anger and your bitterness and go see your dad. It's only for a little while. So anyway, whatever other words he had with this young man, it worked. So the boy decided, okay. He thought about it. He hawed around. All right, I'll go. So he went. So off they go, mom with these two teenagers. So they go to the prison. Dad decides on their way there, he calls the mom and says, you know what? I changed my mind. I don't want to see him. Now, can you imagine, if you can, imagine the heartbreak that this would have on those two children? It was all that boy could do in the first place to even say yes. And then you're going to change your mind? Oh, that did it. So when they got there, mom learned, because she was persistent. She said, oh, yeah, you're going to see these children. You're going to see these children. She's a detective, so apparently she has some type of privilege or something. So anyway, of course, some of us who have access to these prisons, you have to sign in names and all that kind of stuff. You have to be approved to see them. Dad have to say, okay, I want to see my son, daughter, blah, blah, blah. Well, mom gets there and she find out dad didn't do that. Because mom said, we're going to see these children over there. Dad saying, I don't want to see them. So he decided upon himself to not put their name on the list. And on top of that, because she told him that she was coming anyway, he thought he could fix that. So what does he do? Dad. He decides to get in a fight. Well, fighting is going to cause dad not to have any visitors. So when mom got there and actually saw dad, because the children couldn't go back there, and they were heartbroken sitting out there in the lobby, all upset and crying. And so mom goes back there and says, you know what? Y'all beat up, blood, nose running, and then, black eye, all that. Mom says, this is the best you could do? Really? You were that determined not to see your children. These are your children. You're that determined not to see your children. After they wanted to see you so bad, you decided you're going to get in a fight. So now nobody can get back here. If she wasn't a detective, she wouldn't have been able to get back there. He said, I told you I did not want to see them and not to bring them. Mom said, you are the poor excuse of a father I've ever met in my life, and had some other choice words that I'm not going to say. But she lit into him real hard behind those walls. So she goes back out. After having those words, Dad, I guess he made his point. He didn't want to see him. He was determined. So anyway, we go on. She goes back out and she meets the two children. And of course, they're asking questions. Well, can we go? Can we go? Can we see him now? How many of you know it took all mom had in her to tell those children that they couldn't see the dad? She was crying herself. So what do you do, folks? When you're in a situation like this, mom is trying her best to make those children as whole as they can be in such a time as this. And every step she took forward, she took 3 or 4 steps back. So now they get to ride back home, which was a long ride back home. Nobody saying anything in the car because they just could not believe what happened. So they get back home, and her husband and their children had the grill going because they didn't know all of this had happened. had the grill going, thinking the kids was to come back all bubbling and happy, and we got to see our dad, and he said this and he said that, and da 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 da, and all three of them come back in the car with a long face. Didn't take but a hot second for Dad to look at his wife, and her face and her eyes told him it didn't happen. So her children also looking for these two to come back. Those two didn't have anything to say to anybody. So the dad of the house decided, okay, why don't we just go in and have ourselves a nice time with this food and this grill and these hot dogs and whatever else he was cooking, and the boy wasn't trying to hear it. He went all the way around the other side of the house. They had this house with a big round porch. He went all the way around the other side. He didn't want to be around none of them. This is the inmate's son. He didn't want to be around any of them. So there would he go again with this other son. Decides he's going to go save the one son by talking to him. It worked. Whatever they said, it worked. Those two boys. My point, folks, is every family in this situation does not have a saving grace, does not have a savior. This family just happened to take the initiative to take these two children in because they didn't have anywhere else to go. They were going to go in the system. Not one relative stepped up. So they were at their wits' end. So anyway, the boy decides he's going to come on back around and join everybody else, dragging his feet like teenagers do. You know, he didn't want to do it, but he thought, well, you know what, you make sense. And he was hungry. So he went on over there and joined everyone else, and he took his sister's hand, and they walked on back around together. She looking up at him. I guess it may have been a foot difference in height. She looking up at him with her big brown eyes crying. And they hugged each other and walked on around. Obviously, this brother and sister were very close, like the other brother and sister were. They were very close, and they held each other up. Because as they were going to the table to eat, that's what they were doing. So mom and dad looked at them and decided, okay, we ready to eat. We're going to have a good time. Everything is going to be fine. This is the mom telling those other two children, you do have a home. You are welcome to stay here. Now, you know, mom had to go through the legal channel to get them. I don't know what happened after that. But the moral of the story is every family or every incarcerated or should I say limited of freedom people, they could be in detention center or whatever it is for a short period of time, 6 months, a year, or 10 years, or a life. I don't know. It all affects the family.
Yeah, I if I could jump in, I don't think she should have taken him to the prison if, you know, he wasn't going to see him. That's too much trauma.
She didn't know he wasn't. Dad said he was ready to see them until they got there. And he called her on her cell phone and said, you know what? I changed my mind. Well, they already out there in the parking lot of the prison.
And so to take them, to expose them after she realized that, to go through those gates and bars and cells, and, you know, I worked in that place for 7 years in maximum security. So it's a very cold place, and looking at other families, and it's not the most hospitable place. But no, I think when she found out, she should have cut her losses. That's the way to say it. Yeah, cut the losses, because it was traumatic. And then also, for whatever reason, he didn't want to see him. Now check this. If an inmate in a cell 24 hours a day don't want to get a look at something on the outside, there's absolutely positively something wrong. I don't recall ever meeting an inmate in a situation like that. They want to see something, even if they're not the person they want to see. But look, I don't know too many inmates that didn't want to get out of the cell just to go to the doctor, just to go anywhere. But I don't know the details of this family. But if this guy said he didn't want to see those children, then he is kind of like the closest thing you can think of. He didn't want the children to see him in that situation. And I can identify if it was something like that. But even then, it would still be a tough case not to try to see somebody from the outside world, because if they talk to him on the phone, this, that, and the other. But what a story! And I get your point that people don't have those saviors like that. And in this case, it's an honorable mention to that family who took those children in, and her being a detective too, because you're thinking about somebody breaking the law. If that was the case, I don't know if he was guilty or not, but and how somebody that's involved with law enforcement was taking care of him. So it's a lot of polarized things going on there. Another good part is they had children already that were able to be a shoulder to lean on, when they were going through that situation.
With the children being there, their children, yeah.
Hmm.
And the fact that, and these are some of the points I was going to bring out also, going stepping back a minute about why, and that was one of my questions. Why did inmate dad change his mind? And some of
Hmm.
the things I said was he was embarrassed,
Hmm.
um, didn't know what to say because of so many, evidently, so many previous disappointments.
Hmm.
Evidently, that son had experienced some of his disappointments before. So he didn't know what to say about that. Some of it could be just being irresponsible. What's wrong with just talking to your children, encouraging them, even though you are behind bars or glass between you or whatever? You could have done that much, Dad. Maybe he didn't have a home for them. He didn't have anywhere he couldn't call on his folks for to take them in, and that bothered him. Okay, he couldn't provide for them. Okay, missing mom. Maybe he was missing the mother too much. The mother who wasn't in the picture. Maybe he was missing mom too much to face the children. Just guilt, feeling guilty for various reasons. Those are some of the things that I thought why dad changed his mind. Because at
Hmm.
first, he said that the detective was not going to take his children because she was ready to just take them off his hands, period. You have no responsibility since you don't want to do right, type thing. He didn't want to hear that. So he must have had some feelings. I cannot fathom a parent, mother or father, not having some type of feelings for their child. It might be limited feelings, but you have to feel something, something. And that's just my thought on as a parent. You know, stuff happens, life happens. We talking real life, folks. My name is Nada Manning. I am your host as we talk about real life issues on Let's Talk Real Life show. Um, we all know that this particular subject is very very real today, and it seems to be more and more. I dare say the prisons are probably overflowing with people roundabout now. But situations like this, when you have someone that's willing to take care of your children, it should not be questioned unless you have questions about the people that's taking them in. I don't know how much better it can get when you have a detective and a man that owns his own business to take care of your children.
Yeah, it's like in that situation, some trauma. You know, you can get any combination of things, especially if you're dealing with substance abuse or something like that, or some mental issues or some, and see why I say that. I don't mean that they high all the time. I think that substance abuse can heighten your already dislike for the system. It could be a
Yeah,
cousin or whatever. You don't like that cousin, and you'll be irrational enough to say, I don't want them to have my children. I mean, you'll say something similar
yeah,
to that. And I've seen, working at the homeless shelter for over 3 years, I've seen people in those situations, and they don't not say they don't want their children. their situation just overwhelms them, and they will acknowledge, I can't take care of you right now. Mama's gonna come back and get you. And some do, and which obviously, if the child is going to foster care, then the parent does have a chance at reunification. So it could be 1 year or 2 years or something like that. But before the child is 18. So yeah, I don't see them. I ain't seen a lot saying I'm not. Now I have seen uh, a mom or a dad say, "You got them. Your responsibility now." That's another way of saying, "Nah, I ain't taking care of you. You go with your daddy, or you go with your mama." Now I have seen that, or you go with your grandmama. That's a cop out. I've seen that before. And really, you can't really tell if they're just deferring to the person that has the means to take care of a child, versus somebody who, doesn't have the conscience, like,
Yeah.
I had you, but I can't take care of you. I don't want you. So they'll find some kind of way to disguise it. But yeah, there's some ways. But most of the time, I think is that circumstances overwhelm him, take him to another place. He knew he couldn't take care of him. But to say I don't want somebody else to take care of him, there had to be a grudge, or there had to be something going on there.
Well, the grudge is the fact that this particular mom is the reason why he was incarcerated in the first place. He made that clear. So
Okay, so
that's
the detective was the reason why he was in jail.
she the one put him in there, and
Oh,
he didn't let
she's
her.
the one that put him in jail.
The dad, yes.
Oh, wow. So now, I'm just taking this too deep. I think it's a good subject, but you can
Well,
just
well, I
stop
did.
me. But the judge, to take a child and put him in the custody of somebody that arrested you,
No,
that took some great consideration.
yeah, but it wasn't legal yet. She just took him temporarily
Yeah, even in that, for
because they didn't have nowhere else to go.
yeah, I follow you. I follow
Okay,
you. If they did that, there was an emergency placement,
right.
and you got play people like that. You can do respite on the weekends of police, and we've all seen. Not we all seen it, but if you've seen a picture of a drug raid or somebody going to somebody's house, law enforcement responding to a house, and there's children there, first thing you hear is when the officers bust through the door, you're gonna hear children start crying, and then they're looking for
Right,
who they're looking for,
right,
and you'll find the officer that's holding the child, and immediately they call DSS to
right, right.
assess that situation. But I
Exactly.
haven't seen one where they took them home with them. Look, I would if I was in that situation. I know any decent officer would offer to be shelter for someone like that, even short term or long term.
Yeah. Well, I think in reality also we have to think about the ages of these children. These are
Mm.
teenagers.
Uh-huh.
In my experience, don't too many, I volunteer at the prisons from time to time for a few years now.
Mm.
And there's not too many people that want to take in those teenagers.
Yeah, they can be tough.
Um, they'd rather have elementary age, babies on up to maybe 7, 8 years old. When it comes to them 13, 14, 12, 13, oh no, they don't want them. And see, that's to me is commendable. And I think her having the children of her own at that age helped them also to make a conscious decision, her and her husband, to make a conscious decision that this would be good for the children coming in. And they felt some kind of way about their own children accepting these other two children. It was to me, it was a lesson learned all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
Those two children that were already in their home with their mom and dad got to see what it was like to not have what they have. Because
Mm-hmm.
now they see another boy and a girl that don't have a home, don't have a mom and a dad, and they just out there. So okay, you two children that are so blessed to have your parents at home, look at what it could be. So okay, two children, appreciate what you have at home.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I
you
had an
need to,
only child.
huh?
I had an only child, and I had foster care on the weekends. and I had a couple of long term stays from teenagers that came in my family with my son. So what you're saying is, true. But it ain't like he learned a lot, but then he did understand, other children don't have places to go. And I don't ever recall him saying anything. Well, one of them had, yeah, I remember one that had some real issues. But for the most part, we got along well.
I just think that this particular um, part of life is very meaningful, especially for our teenagers, because we all know that our teenagers are getting into trouble all the time these days. Not all of them, but many of them, because of something going on at home. Now, these two children that came into the home from the incarcerated dad could have been very much of a discipline problem. One of those, but they weren't. They weren't. They seemed to be well behaved.
Yeah, you didn't say nothing about them cutting up, and of course,
No,
I think that. See, before you take a a child or a student in with mental issues or behavior issues, see, I don't see that officer bringing anybody in her home like that. Not that she couldn't handle it, but they're high maintenance.
right,
And when they cut up at school, you got to go get them, and she already
right.
a police officer. So I don't see her taking, like you said, unless it was a
Stay.
very short scenario,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm. But at the end of the day, she was willing to just take them in. Period. I don't know how much time Dad had, but she
Hmm.
was willing to take them on to finish raising them
Oh
and
yeah,
to be, good people.
they were well behaved students.
Yeah, they were.
They were just displaced. That's all.
Exactly. But my point is also not all teenagers are like that. They're not that well
Hmm.
behaved. These days, many of them are just completely out of control because of home environment or environment, period, wherever they are, school environment, just their environment. But I think we also talked about this some weeks ago, a few months ago, maybe, about the home environment affecting how the children become. I don't think any child is born to be out out and out irate. I think that's a learned behavior. They have to be in an environment exposed to something to become that way. I don't
Mm.
think anyone was born to be mean, just born mean, period.
Now let me step in.
Okay.
I love what you said, but I gotta disagree.
Okay. Go
Um,
for it.
I got to. I don't know what. I am not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist, but I do know that some children are bad to the bone. Everything can be pretty roses. Oh man,
Were
everything
they
could be
born
just
that way?
yes, my dear. Yes, they have the. Some people don't believe in ADHD. Some people don't believe in those alphabet and those labels. And I have seen a lot of children that were labeled because their parents wanted to get a check. But you talking to a man that worked in 4 group homes, okay? 4. It could be the sunniest, best day in the world, and some of them children are just mean. They will find the nastiest, most creative thing to do just to mess up the day.
And how old are they?
I worked with them from ages 8 to 21.
Okay.
And
What
and
happened?
look, even check this one out. Now, this one was the most thing that I learned. Was the most interesting thing that I learned. It's called encaprices. You ever heard of that term?
No.
Encaprices is when a child doesn't agree with what's going on in the group or in a setting. So they'll use the bathroom on themselves intentionally
Okay.
and blow up everything. You get in the van and they say they want to go, everybody's going to Burger King and they want to go to McDonald's. Well, you're going to start, and I'm not trying to laugh either. You're going to start smelling something. That's what I mean. I'm talking a direct link to just mean.
But
And was he born that way? Absolutely.
how you know if you just met him when he was 8?
Who go? What is his dad did the same thing? Did he see somebody else and talk to him? Say, hey man, I know a way that you can get back at him. Just use the bathroom on yourself.
I'm saying to you, were they born? Did they come in this world with that meanness?
Yes,
I don't think so.
I just said, how else you gonna pick up that behavior?
Well,
If it's not original, if it's not in your psyche, that's what I'm just saying. What am I going to? Oh, you use the bathroom on yourself when you get mad? Oh, okay, that's a good idea. See, I'm talking about learned behavior from another student. Like you're saying they learned it from a. No, you don't learn. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. I can use the bathroom on myself. No, in somewhere in their dark psyche, along with a whole lot of other stuff that they do, yes, when they see some children, when they see another children smile or another child get a gift from their parents or get clothes brought to them or get a visitation and they don't like it, oh, you can expect something. So
well, I don't disagree with that part.
yeah, that part right there, that's a intentional meanness. Where they get it from? They just want to be mean. Come on. They just want to be mean. You out there getting a visitation with your family. All of a sudden, I hear smoke, see smoke coming out the back room where they then went back there and burnt something.
I believe that.
That's mean.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But we're gonna move on. But my point is, I'm just talking about from birth, from the time they come out of their mama's womb, out of her uterus, and born in this world.
Yeah.
Automatically, by the time he's 1 year old, he's mean.
Is that what I'm hearing you say? The first chance they get to be sassy, they will.
Well, maybe so, but they weren't born with it.
Well, how did they get it?
Like you saying, after they become of age, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, it was kind of early, but they had to learn it over a period of time. They weren't born that way.
Most of the mental health issues are passed on from the mom, if there is some.
Yeah.
Well, yes, genetically traceable.
Right. And a lot of that, the speaking coming from mom could be, and I had learned this not too long ago, if mom is involved in some inappropriate activities.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And she's pregnant.
Yes, that brings a lot of issues.
Then that carries something over to the baby's mental ability.
Mm-hmm.
Or behavior, whatever you want to call it, is transferred over. I do believe that.
It can, yeah.
Now that part I can see. And truthfully speaking, that maybe some older lady just told me that not too long ago, that she believes that's what's going on in today's system, in the school system, with all these children that's acting out inappropriately, which is what we're talking about, is sometimes their mothers who carried them were inappropriately addressed, I guess is a nice, sweet way to put it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so some of it is learned behavior, because you either get bullied, you get bullied for like I was, you get bullied for so long, then you become the bad guy. Yeah. You become bitter. Right. You want to dominate somebody.
Right.
So yeah, some of it is influenced on your environment. Some of it, and some of it is hereditary. That's the word I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, folks, we're talking real life here. You just heard me and my co-host going at it about these situations.
They should comment on this video and say yes or no or whatever they think.
Absolutely. And this is one of the things that makes the topic or the show so interesting. When we have such a topic, it becomes highlight of the show when we have a difference of opinion, and
Mhm.
um, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing because even though we are on the same path
Mhm.
with certain topics at times, we are still two different individuals, folks. As you all are out there in the world. Everybody have an opinion. Everybody have a thought. Everybody have a different way of thinking on things. Well, how about this? Or well, maybe so and such and such.
Hey,
We have to think about those things. Yes.
let me do a great crossover for the general public. I loved it when not I didn't love it when a child got in trouble because I worked in boys and girls clubs and stuff like that, YMCA. When you have to tell a parent what a child done that day or something that happened, and they say, "Oh no, not my child," it
Right.
never made me upset because I know that they never may not revealed themselves, or that child may not act that way when they're around their parents.
Right.
So they may not have seen them do that, but it is when somebody's reporting to me something my child done, I never just jump right off to their defense. Uh, some of it I didn't believe, but some I would just listen. But some parents don't think that their children do psychological bullying or anything like that. So now maybe the audience can identify with that we're not talking about your child students that stabbing each other all the time, but
Right.
just doing keen, sneaky things.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then my child wouldn't do that. No, he don't do that. I've never seen him do that.
Not my child.
Not my child.
Right.
So I just
Right.
smile. We
Right.
got 8 minutes left.
And just to piggyback on that, I have my own personal experience with my son, my youngest
Uh
son. Let him tell it. I didn't never believe anything he said.
huh. Oh wow, there's the opposite.
He said, "Mama, you always believe what the teacher say." And
Oh.
I said, "Well, son, I want to listen to both sides of the story." I said, "Because you know what? I want you to learn that there's always two sides to
Mm.
every story. And I want you to understand that. I'm not just going to go by what you say.
He won't guilty all the time.
I know that. Mom said, Mom, I told you I didn't do it. But you know what? The boy was so guilty so much. But and he has never forgotten that. And he's 45 years old today. And he tells me right today, Mom, I remember very well. I don't care what happened because I've always told the teacher to give me a call when something is going on. And when I get home, I'll talk to him about it. Or when he comes home, and we'll talk about it and see what's going on and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I'm going to talk to your teacher, right? And sometime I want you to be right there with me. And so you
Mm-hmm.
can listen. So we won't be making up anything. But anyway, moving right along. Um, the other part of it, which is not much time left, I have what, 5 minutes? 48.
6 minutes and
6 minutes.
39 seconds.
Um, I want to say, remember last week, folks, we were talking about what? When knowledge hurts. When knowledge
Mm-hmm.
hurts. This scenario tonight was all about knowledge and knowing. That boy knew what he knew about his dad, and it caused him to be bitter. And that hurt. He knew what was going on. And maybe the girl probably knew also, but she just didn't want to accept it because she was a daddy's girl.
Mm-hmm.
She still wanted to be with her dad.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted his mama. It was one of those things. So when things happen in our lives with our children, as we bring them up as grandparents and parents, we have to realize the impact that whatever we're doing or whatever behavior we are exploring around them or in front of them or whatever way you want to put it, that knowledge that they will learn, sometimes it will help and sometimes it will hurt. So knowledge does hurt given whatever the scenario is. And it can also help at the same time. And this particular story that I explained to you tonight and shared with you about this detective mom, that's what she was doing. She was helping. She may not have done it the way some folks would have done it, but at the end of the day, those children were smiling and eating like 4 children and 2 parents. Just everything was smoothed out. Now, the inner feelings of those 2 children, I'm sure, were still there, but for that moment, they felt some love. And that's
Mhm.
what we all want to feel. We want to feel loved. We want to feel wanted. We want to feel cared for because so many people don't have that. And so now we're coming to the end of the show for tonight. And I want you all to please walk away with that thought in mind. Knowledge can either help you or hurt you, and it's up to the giver of the knowledge to ensure that it will help the person and not hurt them. We're not here to hurt anybody. We're always here to help because we can always put ourselves in that position, whatever that negative position is. It could have been me. It could have been you, folks, as the parent that's missing or as the parent that was incarcerated. There's always two sides to every story. And we want to walk away knowing that that love and concern that we supposed to have for one another and for others is definitely true. So my encouraging words for you tonight is to remember that that knowledge can help or hurt. And now we're going to pray. Father God, thank you again for this time. Thank you again for anointing this conversation, for making it very interesting, Lord, to bring out some very real issues in our lives that's going on today and all around us, all around the world. We thank you, Lord, for this opportunity, as always, every week. Lord, I ask that you also anoint those listeners out there to whoever that they know that's incarcerated or confined in any way. If they can do anything to help them, put it on their hearts and in their spirits to do so, whatever that is. It could be love from a distance, however way it works, Lord, you know all about it. And I say that with all heart and all sincerity. You do know all things. You know all about them. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Any lasting comments, sir?
Well, I think it was a great show. I believe that gets the attention of those who are listening who have loved ones that are incarcerated. My heart goes out to them, and as well as the ones that are incarcerated that have children. And we just, kicked the can around about a scenario, and that was real. I think it's a true story. Some people
Amen.
have some true stories right now they're going through
Yes.
in their families, and they have someone, maybe a child that's incarcerated. I
Yep.
remember first going to the juvenile detention center when I first came to Greenville. I was trying to get a job there, and I'm thinking juvenile detention center. There were actually 12, 10, 11, 12, 13 young teens that was locked up, and that was the first time I had seen that in my life.
Yep.
And I went over there across the river and put an application in, and that's when I didn't see any of them when I went in to do the interview.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked up. The funniest thing, there was a big black crow on the telephone pole over there. It was huge, one of the biggest crows I'd ever seen. And that crow was like, "Rah, rah," and he was looking at me. And that crow told me I was not going to get the job. To this day, I'm thinking that's what I thought that crow told me that day. It's like, nah, you're not gonna get that job. But I know that's a side piece, a side story. But yeah, I went to the juvenile, and that's when I found that they lock children up, and those are the baddest of the baddest. To be that young and be locked up.
Yeah. Well, stuff just go on in these families all around the world, and these children end up being in the middle, as always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Some type of domestic something going on.
right. I
And
had
I, I
one.
just I just pray that one day maybe I'll be able to save some of them. I can't save them all, but I'd like very much to save some of them. That's one of my things I have on my bucket list.
I just had one of my first mentees that I had. He killed himself probably about 4 months ago, overdosing drugs. Ladies and gentlemen, come back to see us next Wednesday. This has been Let's Talk Real Life with Native Manor, 106.9.
Awesome radio.
For World, this is The Sift. I'm Kent Covington. New Zealand has a new prime minister 6 days after former leader Jacinda Ardern
All right, great show.
Thank you. I feel good about this one.
Yeah, it was a good story. I thought you was giving us a mystery to figure out. I'm like, what's this going to be, a crime, who done it story? And we had to. I was listening closely. I'm like, you were saying now the mother is this and the dad, and I'm thinking, okay, I better remember who these people are because she's gonna ask the question about who did it. That's what I thought you was gonna do.
It's a thought. I might do that some of these times and make it.
Yeah, I know. I had to follow closely.
Yeah. But yeah, that was I feel real good about this one. It was something different.
Yeah, it was definitely a whole different path than you normally take.
Yeah.
You gave something for people to think about until you say you don't believe children are born that way. If you don't believe in curses, you don't believe in curses then because some of them children got it. Whew.
And then I said I go back and I had to retract and say, well, sometime if the mother is indulging in activities while she's carrying that baby, it will affect that baby.
You got that right.
And they will be born with it. And I think that's what's happening most of the time, if not all the time.
It does. And I can't tell you when, but I just tell you what.
Yeah.
But I've seen some behavioral children that were what you call disabled, disability, special needs, all that. Yes, those are clearly autistic. Those are clearly children that behavior issues are just sort of a byproduct of something that they got going on mentally. But then there are some normal ones that look normal. That's fine. And when it's great. Beautiful day. You can have all day long. You have a good time playing kickball, and then all of a sudden, them cats want to go the other way.
Yeah, doing about face, huh?
And it's nice to talk to somebody who, I had to make a living in that world, and but then I volunteered as a guardian ad litem for like 6 years for neglect and abused children. So I go to their house and go to both parties' parents' house and back and forth, and I make a recommendation of which home I think the child should stay in, and I go to court. When DSS or the family is fighting about, well, we want our child and we want, then I be in the middle and make a recommendation.
Yeah.
About where they should go. I never lost a case.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in 6 years, the judge always took, every time I went to court, they took my recommendation. And it wasn't that I was right or the other people was wrong. I just spent a lot of time, a little bit more than I had to see where the child was happiest at. And so everybody knew that I figured it out because I did the time. I'd go over there and play with them all the time. And like, no, that child works better in that household. So that's why they didn't disagree with me because I always picked the right one, That's how that worked.
Okay.
Yeah. But so when you talk about them bad children, boy.
It's adults like you that's still needed out there because they have gotten really, in my opinion, from what I have seen, they've gotten much, much worse.
I cannot imagine what they got going on now. You are so right. I just
Gotten worse.
I don't know if I can do it right now, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It takes a special person, a special anointing from God
Mm.
to deal with what's out there today.
And some of the workers would snatch them kids up, boy, and take them in the room. You wouldn't know what they doing to them. But the kids would sort of get accustomed to it. They wouldn't always report it, you know.
Right.
But some of the staff, they would just blow their top every now and then. And all I can say is some of them children know how to take you there.
Yeah.
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 They know exactly what to say. And if you don't think you'll lose your temper, then I would say don't guarantee yourself before you get in that environment for it. Like, I got this. All you got to do is say, little Johnny, go to your room. It's time out. We on punishment. If that's all you got to say, it will be a pie job. But no.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess that's it for tonight, sir.
Okay, ma'am.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a real pleasure. I will talk to you soon, I'm sure. Until then, have a wonderful morning.
All right. You as well.
Bye.
Bye.